picture this for a second. It's a quiet Sunday afternoon. You are sitting completely still in your living room, and the house is just, perfectly peaceful.
Sounds nice.
Right. There is absolutely no crisis unfolding in your life. Nobody has sent you any bad news, and you certainly aren't being chased by anything dangerous. But despite all of this objective safety, your chest feels a little tight.
That is a very familiar feeling for a lot of people.
It really is. Your shoulders are holding this strange, stubborn tension. Your mind keeps scanning the horizon, jumping from thought to thought, almost as if you have, misplaced something incredibly important.
Exactly. There is no obvious danger anywhere, but there is this low, constant hum of unease.
Welcome to TalkKast, because today we're looking at exactly that. We're trying to decode the biological difference between stress and anxiety.
And specifically, why our bodies are suddenly misinterpreting modern life as a constant threat.
Yes, and most importantly, we want to find out how to mechanically hack our physical baseline to just turn that alarm off.
That distinction between stress, fear, and anxiety is the perfect place to start because from a biological perspective, fear usually has a very specific, undeniable object.
Right, like a physical thing.
Exactly. If a car suddenly swerves into your lane on the highway, your brain's threat detection center fires instantly. Your body reacts to a clear, present danger. But modern anxiety, especially that Sunday afternoon unease, is entirely objectless.
I see. So it is a generalized alert system.
Yes, it is designed to protect you, but it is reacting to an environment full of low-level signals rather than one clear, acute danger.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the idea of an objectless alert system completely changes how we view our own anxiety.
It really does.
People often compare this to a car alarm that has become so overly sensitive it goes off just because the wind blew. But a car alarm is loud and binary. It is either on or off.
Right, it is all or nothing.
Exactly. What we're really dealing with is more like, an overly aggressive spam filter in your email.
That is a much more accurate way to look at it.
Right. Your nervous system has this sophisticated filtering mechanism. It is supposed to flag actual threats, which would be the biological equivalent of phishing scams or malware.
But instead, because it has been fed so much overwhelming data, the spam filter starts malfunctioning.
Yes, it starts flagging completely normal, everyday inputs as high-level security threats.
Like an unread message from your boss.
Or a house that feels a little too messy, or a few nights of poor sleep, or even just a constant stream of notifications on your phone.
And none of these are actual emergencies.
Exactly. But your physiological spam filter quarantines them all as critical dangers, locking you out of your own peace of mind.
And we have to look at the mechanism of how that spam filter gets so aggressive in the first place. It comes down to a concept called allostatic load.
Tell me more about that.
Well, when you experience a stressor, your body releases a cascade of hormones, most notably adrenaline and cortisol.
Right, the classic stress hormone.
Exactly. Adrenaline gives you that immediate jolt, but cortisol is the slow burn hormone. It lingers.
So it stays in the body longer.
It does. Cortisol has a biological half-life. It takes time for the liver and kidneys to clear it from your bloodstream.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you experience a tiny stressor, like a frustrating email, your cortisol spikes slightly. If you give your body time to recover, it clears out.
But wait, if the brain is so highly evolved, why is it so easily fooled by a frustrating email?
That is a good point.
I mean, shouldn't the logical part of the brain step in and say, hey, this is just text on a screen, not a predator? Stop producing cortisol.
You would think so, but the autonomic nervous system prioritizes survival over logic.
I see. So it isn't evaluating the intellectual meaning of the email.
Not at all. It is evaluating the metabolic demand of your environment. When you get that email, your breathing gets shallow, your visual focus narrows to the screen, and your muscles tense.
Oh, wow. So to the primitive parts of your brain, those physical cues are identical to the cues of preparing for a physical attack.
Exactly. And here is where the allostatic load becomes critical. Before the cortisol from that email can clear your system, your phone buzzes with a news alert.
Another microdose of cortisol.
Right. Then you sit in traffic, another dose. The stressors just overlap.
Because the cortisol never fully clears.
Yes. And so your baseline level of physiological arousal steadily creeps upward over days, weeks, and months.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because of how our brain interprets that rising baseline,
Go on.
there is this massive misconception that anxious thoughts are always what cause physical symptoms. We assume that we start worrying about our finances or our relationships, and as a result of those thoughts, Our heart rate goes up.
Or our stomach gets tied in knots.
Exactly. But actually, it is often the exact opposite. The physical feeling comes first, and the anxious thoughts are just the symptom.
We are talking about interoception here, which is a really vital concept.
What exactly is that?
Well, we all know the basic outward senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. But interoception is your brain's perception of the sensations inside your body.
So it is how your brain monitors your heart rate, your digestion, your muscle tension, and your breathing depth.
That is true. The brain is constantly reading these internal metrics to gauge how safe you are.
So it is like a dashboard for your internal organs. But how does that dashboard create the feeling of anxiety on a peaceful Sunday afternoon?
Because the brain is, fundamentally a meaning-making machine, it absolutely hates an unexplained physical sensation.
That makes a lot of sense.
So if your body is already activated, say you are over-caffeinated, underslept, or just carrying a week's worth of overlapping cortisol in your tissues, your interoceptive dashboard is flashing red.
Your heart is beating a little faster, your chest is tight.
Right. The brain receives this data and says, my body is preparing for a threat, therefore a threat must exist. Let me find it.
It is retrofitting a narrative to match the physiology.
Exactly. The body is just tired or overstimulated, but the mind refuses to accept that as an answer.
So it scans your entire life looking for a matching problem. It pulls up an awkward conversation you had 3 years ago, or it suddenly starts predicting a bizarre financial collapse that might happen 6 months from now.
It asks, did I offend that person, or am I going to be fired?
Precisely. The brain feels the physical tension, predicts there should be a danger, looks at the safe living room, and experiences an error.
And to resolve the error, it invents a psychological threat to justify the physical reality.
You end up spiraling about a completely random possibility, fully believing that the thought caused the anxiety.
But the reality is the body was just biochemically exhausted, and your brain wrote a fictional story to justify the tension.
That reframes everything. It means we spend so much time trying to outthink our anxiety, trying to rationally argue with these invented stories when the thoughts aren't even the root of the problem.
Which naturally forces us to ask, what is the root?
Right. What is keeping our bodies in this constant state of physical alert, pumping out these microdoses of cortisol if we aren't actually in danger?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to confront the reality of our always-on culture.
Oh, absolutely.
Modern life is practically engineered to keep your nervous system in a state of continuous partial attention. We have basically eradicated the empty spaces in our day.
That is a good point. Historically, humans experience spikes of intense stress, followed by long periods of low stimulation recovery.
Today, we exist in a relentless, flatline hum of high-density information.
But, people push back on this all the time. They say, well, I have plenty of downtime. I spend 3 hours every evening just relaxing on the sofa.
What are they actually doing?
Usually scrolling through a feed of bite-sized, highly emotive videos or absorbing global news. They call it resting, but it is just a softer form of stimulation. We touch on that in Why You Feel Tired All the Time.
Right.
How you can technically spend enough hours in bed but still wake up completely unrefreshed because the depth of recovery just isn't there. The same applies to our waking hours.
The nervous system cannot tell the difference between relaxing while consuming outrage-inducing news and actually being in a dangerous environment.
So being physically still on a sofa does not equate to a relaxed nervous system.
Not at all. When you are scrolling, you are getting rapid-fire dopamine hits mixed with cortisol spikes from negative information.
You are absorbing the tension of global conflicts, economic warnings, and societal outrage.
And the human nervous system simply did not evolve to meaningfully process the collective stress of the entire planet on a minute-by-minute basis.
It is a profound mismatch between our biology and our environment. And because we don't have those clear boundaries anymore, where work stays at the office and home is a sanctuary, we exist in this murky gray area.
You are never fully in threat, but you are never fully off duty either.
Right. You are always half available to answer an email, or, half expecting a notification, which creates this incredibly frustrating self-feeding loop.
That loop is basically the engine of chronic background anxiety. Step 1, the body accumulates allostatic load from this constant low-level environmental stimulation.
And step 2 is the brain's interoceptive network notices the physical tension and invents a negative, worrying thought to explain it.
Exactly. Step 3, the body reacts to that terrifying new thought by producing even more adrenaline and cortisol, tightening the muscles further.
And step 4, The brain takes that increased physical tension as absolute proof that the imagined threat is real. Round and round it goes.
And by the time you actually notice how anxious you are, the original minor trigger is completely forgotten.
Like a poor night's sleep or a stressful commute, all you feel is the momentum of the loop itself. You start getting anxious about the fact that you're anxious.
You ask, why can't I just relax like a normal person?
But let me play devil's advocate here. Identifying the loop is great, but people can't just quit their jobs, throw their smartphones into the ocean, and move to a cabin in the woods to escape the modern world.
That is very true.
We have mortgages, we have responsibilities. So how do we actually deal with this biologically without requiring a massive, unrealistic life overhaul?
That is the most crucial question we can ask, and the answer is very empowering. You don't need a miracle fix, and you don't need to abandon modern society.
That is a relief.
You just need to focus on mechanically lowering your baseline level of physiological activation. Because the physical body initiates the loop, the physical body is your fastest way to break it.
So you have to bypass the overthinking mind entirely.
Exactly.
We stop trying to logic our way out of it and we go straight to the hardware. Let's talk mechanisms. How do we actually signal the hardware to power down?
It starts at the vagus nerve.
Tell me about that.
The vagus nerve is the superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest network. It runs from your brainstem down through your neck into your chest and wraps around your digestive organs.
And most of us spend our days breathing too high up in our chests, using our accessory muscles.
Right. This shallow, rapid breathing literally signals the brain that you are in a state of emergency.
Because chest breathing is what we do when we are running or fighting.
Exactly. But if you intentionally change the mechanics of your breath, specifically by engaging the diaphragm, you can hack the system.
How does that work?
When you take a deep, low breath and expand your stomach, the diaphragm physically moves downward. This movement gently massages the vagus nerve.
Oh, wow.
And when the vagus nerve is stimulated mechanically like this, it releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine directly onto the heart.
Acetylcholine acts like a brake pedal, doesn't it?
It does. It physically forces your heart rate to slow down.
That is incredible. So it isn't just a psychological placebo of taking a deep breath to calm down. It is a literal mechanical lever.
That is exactly what it is.
You are manually releasing acetylcholine to slow the heart, which then changes the interoceptive data being sent to the brain.
And the brain says, oh, the heart rate is dropping. The threat must be gone. I can stop obsessing.
So by dropping your shoulders, extending your exhale so it is longer than your inhale, and breathing low into the belly, you interrupt the anxiety loop at the root.
You prove safety to the brain using the body's own chemical language.
And beyond breathing, we also have to look at movement. If the body is quietly bracing for action all day, flooded with that slow burn cortisol, that biological preparation needs a physical discharge, right?
It absolutely does. The stress cycle evolved to be completed through physical action.
If a predator chases you, you run. The physical exertion burns off the stress hormones.
But today, if you sit at a desk absorbing mental pressure from spreadsheets and video calls, your body is still preparing to run.
And if you never physically discharge that activation, the cortisol just lingers in your tissues.
That's right.
So sitting on the couch trying to meditate your way out of intense physical anxiety might actually backfire because the body is screaming to move.
In many cases, yes. The nervous system needs to complete the cycle.
Taking a brisk 10-minute walk, doing some light stretching, or even just aggressively cleaning your kitchen with some momentum helps metabolize those lingering stress hormones.
It provides the physical resolution that the body has been waiting for. It signals to the nervous system that the metaphorical tiger has been outrun.
It sounds almost too simple, but we dismiss it because it doesn't feel complicated enough to solve the problem. But walking around the block can literally do more for your neurochemistry than an hour of sitting there trying to rationally outthink your anxiety.
That is a very good way to put it.
And while we're talking about neurochemistry, we have to talk about what we are actively putting into our bodies that raises that baseline in the first place. The big one being stimulants.
Caffeine is a massive, often ignored variable here.
It feels completely benign because it is so socially acceptable and even celebrated to drink coffee all day.
But caffeine works by blocking adenosine, the chemical that makes you feel tired, while simultaneously stimulating the adrenal glands to produce more adrenaline and cortisol.
Which is the exact opposite of what you want if your spam filter is already too sensitive.
Precisely. If your system is already hovering near the threshold of anxiety, adding a heavy stimulant on top of it just pushes you right over the edge.
And a lot of people use caffeine to compensate for poor sleep.
which just further disrupts their recovery cycle, raising the baseline even higher the next day.
So being incredibly honest with yourself about your late-day caffeine intake and recognizing it as an anxiety amplifier rather than just a harmless energy boost can profoundly change your daily experience.
Definitely. Routine in general seems to be a powerful mechanical antidote here.
Like going to bed at the same time, eating at regular intervals, having a clear start and end to your workday.
It sounds a bit boring on the surface, but structure actually creates a sense of profound safety for the nervous system.
Because it reduces decision fatigue, which is another hidden source of allostatic load.
It lowers the friction of daily life, which gives the spam filter fewer inputs to process. Now, there's a very important caveat we must address here. We are talking about background, low-level NEs, the environmental anxiety of modern life. If your anxiety becomes intense, constant, or results in panic attacks that actively interfere with your ability to function, work, or maintain relationships, that is a clear signal to seek professional support.
Absolutely.
There is no shame in doing so, and it doesn't mean the feeling is just a mindset issue. It means your nervous system needs more structured, targeted intervention to reset, and that help is readily available through medical and psychological professionals.
That is a vital distinction. Recognizing when you have hit your biological limit and need external support is a profound sign of self-awareness. So what does this all mean? If we pull all these threads together, from the vagus nerve to interoceptive prediction errors to the half-life of cortisol, the biggest takeaway for me is that feeling this background anxiety doesn't mean you are weak. It doesn't mean your mind is broken. You are having a highly logical, predictable, physiological response to a modern environment that constantly demands your attention, overloads your sensory dashboard, and rarely allows you to truly deeply recover.
This raises an important question, and it is really about how we frame our own internal experience moving forward. The next time that mysterious low-level unease hits you on a quiet Sunday afternoon, your default instinct will probably be to scan your life, look for a threat, and urgently ask, "What is wrong with me?" But knowing what we know now about the biology of stress, I would encourage you to interrupt that thought. Instead, ask a much kinder and much more scientifically accurate question. What has my nervous system been carrying quietly all this time?
What has my system been carrying quietly all this time? That completely changes the relationship you have with your own body. It shifts it from a place of self-criticism to a place of profound physical compassion. It acknowledges the invisible allostatic load we are all walking around with, completely unaware. And I want to leave you with one final immediate thought to test this out. Right now, as you are listening to this, I want you to check in with your physical posture.
Are your shoulders creeping up toward your ears? Is your jaw clenched? Are you holding your breath without realizing it?
Because right now, your brain is reading that exact posture and asking itself, why are we braced for an attack? Just by dropping your shoulders and taking one slow, deep breath, you might be surprised at how quickly the narrative in your mind begins to change. Thanks for listening to TalkKast.